welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to see more content from me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel. Also consider clicking the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. Also, if you are interested in a private reading, I do readings in astrology on a variety of topics ranging from relationship readings to career to transits for 2-3 years, or solar return charts or predictions for 1 year, etc. You are free to email me at the email address that I will leave in the video description, and I can send you a pricing list and reading options and any other details that you might require. Also, I want to mention that I have started membership options on this channel, and the short of it, just to give you the short perks that you will get if you choose to join the membership section, you will get 1 extra video per month for each membership stage or tier. So for the first tier, you will get 1 extra video per month. For the second tier, you will get 2 extra videos per month, so you will have access to level 1 and level 2 videos. And for level 3 or third tier, you will get 3 extra videos per month. The level 1 and level 3 videos are going to be on a variety of topics, so basically anything related to astrology, but it will be content that is not shown on my regular usual videos, right? So this is members only exclusive content, and it can range from, tips and tricks on how to read a horoscope to, I haven't done this yet, but I plan on doing maybe members only astrological synastry for famous couples, for instance, or the analysis of famous people's horoscopes, but then I can also get into divisional charts, etc., etc. So all kinds of things. The level 1 or second tier of membership options is especially related to synastry astrology topics, meaning relationship-oriented astrology. So this could be things like how to discover which kind of partner archetype is right for you according to your horoscope, or it could be, again, different characteristics, whether you're going to have a good marriage according to your horoscope or a less than stellar marriage. But you can find more concrete examples in the lists that you will find in the video description, because I have added the playlists where you can already see all the videos that I have posted in each members section. So yeah, you can see what videos you will have access to from the ones that I have already done. But I will continue to post, like I said, 1 extra video per month for each level of membership. And in addition to that, in the members only section, you will have access to members only polls, and you will also have priority when it comes to getting your comments replied to on my channel. And you will also have stickers that basically show up next to your username that show that you are a member, and a couple of exclusive emojis. All right, so that's pretty much all the perks that you can have as a member on my channel. If you're curious, you can check the video description for more details as well, or you can click the join button under any of my videos to also see the prices, because the prices will be shown in your local currency. All right, in addition to the members only section, I also have a tarot channel, and I post there semi-regularly, and I will be linking the tarot channel in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. It's called Martine's Tarot. So if you are curious about tarot, if you're into it, maybe check out my channel, maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to this intro. And now I'm going to get straight into today's topic. Hello and welcome to my channel. So this is going to be the predictions for 2025 series. I know that I should have started a while ago, and for a bit I was kind of hovering back and forth between should I still do this series, should I not do it? Those of you who have been watching my channel for a few years, you probably remember that I have done these predictions for, the year in question, like yearly predictions, a way back. I think I started with 2021 maybe. And I don't remember exactly if I did them until 2023 but I definitely didn't do them for 2024 because I did say at that time also I was running late and I didn't really have the time or energy to focus on them, and they are quite time consuming. But this time I said, you know what, F it. I feel like it's time to do the prediction series, and I did do a poll in my community page some weeks ago. I think it was more than a month ago, to be fair, and I asked how many of you would like to see your predictions for 2025, and pretty much an overwhelming majority said that they would be interested in seeing it. So I figured, hey, I'm not that late because 2025 still has at least another 11 months to go, so I figured better late than never. So here it is. I'm going to start with the predictions. As an introduction, I do want to say, again, mostly for those of you who have watched these prediction videos in previous years, you probably remember that generally I like to divide the year into subsections. This year was really complicated to do, so I'm not going to be able to do a chart for each subsection, because if I had to do that based on the planets that I normally look at for general predictions, which are Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter, I would have had to divide the year into like 5 different charts and, compute 5 different charts and arrange them and all that. So I chose to divide the year in just 3 different charts, and then 2 of those 3 charts have subdivisions. But you're going to see what I'm talking about in a more visual way when I get to each subdivision. You will see a chart with the general transits and more details on them. I do want to start talking about, I want to mention, okay, I'm not going to hold a long speech, but I want to mention again, just as in previous years, I have decided to focus on, like I said, Saturn and Rahu, Ketu, and then Jupiter, because these are the more slow-moving planets, so they spend a longer time in one sign. So obviously, it doesn't mean that these are the only transits you're going to be going through in 2025, because all the planets are transiting, right? As you probably know, the sun is going to be spending about 30 days in one sign. That's why everyone knows that they're born in Aries or Gemini or whatever, or, what all of the people who know their zodiac signs know, which is that the sun changes every month, like every roughly 30 days or so. And in addition to the sun, of course, there's the other planets. So each of them are going to be transiting through a sign. But because these are general readings, and of course it would be impossible to look at everything, because even with these readings, you're going to see, I think they're pretty detailed. I'm going to go pretty much in detail with a lot of things. But it would have been even more impossible to take into account all the transits. And then, of course, speaking of the subject of predictions, you also have to look at the dashas and the mahadashas and the antardashas and all the different types of dashas that you're going through, which are basically periods of your life that are ruled by a particular planet or a point like Rahu Ketu based on your time of birth, right? So every person is going through their independent individual dasha or sub-dashas, right? And like I said, there are also multiple types of dashas, but I'm not going to get into that. Those of you who come from Vedic astrology, and again, those of you who have been watching my videos for a long time, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. The rest of you, I do recommend that you also do a little bit of research, and you can also find some videos on my channel where I do briefly mention dashas and antardashas, although I don't think I've ever done a video that where I specifically focused on how to read dashas and antardashas. I don't know, maybe I should look into that. If you're interested, comment in the comment section. But this was the introduction. Another part of the introduction, actually, that I want to mention before I get into it is that you're going to see this on the charts that I have drawn, basically. that I have marked the aspects of the main planets, but I just want to remind you, just in case you have forgotten. Again, those of you who have watched my channel for a long time, you probably know this already, but as a recap, if you're looking at Saturn, according to Vedic astrology, Saturn has so-called special aspects. In fact, multiple planets in Vedic astrology have special aspects or one-sided aspects. So Saturn aspects the 3rd, the 7th, and the 10th houses from where it sits. Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter aspect the 5th, aspect the 7th. Well, the 7th is not relevant because they're always in opposition to one another. So Rahu and Ketu are always opposite. So it's not really relevant to look at the opposition because that's where the other one is placed. But Rahu and Ketu are aspecting the 5th, the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th placements from where they are sitting. Also, of course, I didn't mention this, but of course they're aspecting and they're influencing the houses that they're actually sitting on, not just the aspects. The houses they're sitting on are the most powerfully impacted, but they also cast single-sided aspects. So yes, Rahu and Ketu are always in opposition. So that means if you have Rahu in the 1st house, Ketu will be transiting in the 7th house, right? Because they're always opposite one another. That's why on the charts that you're going to see, I have not even marked Ketu on the horoscope because it's understood that, you know, Ketu is in opposition to Rahu. And I might mention Ketu in the readings a little bit, but mostly I'm going to be focusing on Rahu. Another mention that I think is quite important is the fact that I have written down on the charts that I have drawn, I have written down the time intervals where when these transits are going to be active. However, these time intervals, they are general. So bear in mind that the dates of the transits can vary by a few days depending on your location. So in order to know exactly when, let's say, Saturn is going to hit your 11th house, if you have Ascendant in Taurus, you have to actually compute your chart and do a transits calculation based on your actual physical location to know exactly the day and the minute when, you know, it's going to switch from Aquarius to Pisces, just to give you an example. But the dates that I have chosen are, you know, pretty accurate. Give or take, you know, 1 to 3 days, I would say tops, right? This is another mention. So, aside from this, yeah, I'm gonna get straight into it. Oh, there's one more thing that I wanted to mention, which is that, again, you may remember this from previous years if you have been watching my channel for a long time, that I like to do my predictions in a random order. So what I do is, right now I actually have Astro Dice. Last time I used to just pick, you know, notes from like a little urn that I created myself. I would, you know, basically do like a raffle thing where I would pick each sign that I was going to do next in the series. But now I use Astro Dice, and I like to mix it up a little bit just because, you know, I don't feel like it's fair that Aquarius and Pisces are always last and Aries is always first, you know? So, I don't know. That's one aspect. And another aspect is, I don't know, it's just more fun this way for me to just do them randomly in a random order. And I pick the next sign, you know, by rolling a dice. So, just wanted to mention that in case maybe some of you are wondering why they're all scrambled. All right, that's pretty much what I wanted to mention, and this is the introductory part. There is going to be the same introduction for each of these videos, so if you listen to it once, you can, you should just listen to it once. Oh, yeah, there's one more thing. There's one more thing that I want to mention, and again, I have mentioned this in previous years. You can apply these readings for your ascendant sign or your moon sign. And I'm talking about the ascendant sign and moon sign of the D1 chart, the D1 natal chart, not any of the divisional charts. Okay, I cannot vouch for divisional charts. You can also try to look for, I don't know, maybe look into it, tell me if you found some kind of weird coincidences with divisional charts, but I would not look into it because divisional charts are something else, all right, a different type of energy. But with respect to, the moon and the ascendant, you can definitely look at these predictions based on your moon and your ascendant sign, and there will be accuracy connected to it. With the moon sign, it's more to do with your internal landscape and your emotions and what makes you happy on a psychological plane. Let's say, what happens on your inner landscape more, not so much like actual physical things that are happening in your surroundings, right? Whereas the ascendant is a lot more about actual life events. So something to bear in mind. All right, that's pretty much it, and I'm going to get straight into the interpretation right now. Welcome, Leo. This is your predictions for 2025 video. So again, just a short reminder, you can apply this to both your ascendant and your moon sign. The ascendant is going to be more important when it comes to actual life events, whereas the moon sign can show you more about your inner landscape, your happiness, and basically your inner world and your mental state. But both of them can give relevant information. So the first thing that I noticed, so I should have mentioned I'm starting with chart 1, which is from January 1st to March 26th. Sorry for the delay. Of course, I always said whenever I did these readings in previous years that I'm going to start earlier, but I didn't get to it. So I apologize for that. But hopefully next year will be the year when I post them in time. Either way, so this period is basically just a continuation of what happened in 2024, the last months of 2024. This is when Saturn is in Aquarius, Rahu is in Pisces, and therefore Ketu is in Virgo, because Rahu and Ketu are always opposite, and Jupiter is in Taurus. So for you, this is a pretty good period when it comes to work and career, because Jupiter is going through your 10th house. So this shows on the one hand that it is going to be pretty easy for you to progress in your professional endeavors. This can mean an increase of social status. It can mean new career opportunities. It can mean a good paying job or a better paying job than you had before, especially since not only is it, in the 10th, but of course it's aspecting the other two earth houses, the 2nd and the 6th house. The 6th house having to do with employment especially, and the 2nd house is about savings. Even though with Ketu in the 2nd house, there might still be some anxieties about your finances and a general feeling like no matter how much you earn or no matter how much you save, you don't really have enough. But a large reason for this is just purely your perception of things. So Ketu can bring a lot of anxieties, can bring kind of like a sense of insecurity and a lot of introversion in general. And being placed in the 2nd house, it's really bringing out feelings connected to your ability to save money. On the other hand, it can also simultaneously bring anxieties about savings and money, but on the other hand, it can also create a sort of detachment towards money. So you might find that you're actually becoming less interested in making a lot of money since Ketu has entered Virgo and it's going through your 2nd house, and it's going to still be there for a while until pretty much the last segment of the year. So throughout this time, you might really see that you're starting to lose interest in making money, or that money is not going to become your number one priority, which, mostly can be, it depends on what else is going on in the horoscope, but it can be a positive thing, it can be a negative thing, right? So it also means on the one hand that you're more focused on finding meaningful work because money is not the main thing that you're looking for. On the other hand, it can cause you to be a little bit neglectful of your finances and, fall down the pitfall of overspending or irrational spending. That's another thing, because Ketu can be really impulsive. So you need to watch out for that, like impulsive buying, emotional buying, especially shopping when you're down, so anything that basically falls under the category of emotional buying or emotional shopping is something that you should watch out for. But generally, also Jupiter aspecting the sixth house also shows that during this time you're not going to have any major health issues unless there are a lot of afflictions showing up in the individual horoscope, because Jupiter is really protecting your health. Normally, this would also be a good time to take care of pets, spend time with pets, maybe getting a new pet, or if you have relationships with pets, or if you have pets already, it's generally going to be a good time. Unless, again, Jupiter is not doing well in your horoscope. And the way that you can see this especially is if the Ashtak Varga score is not that great, which is it's a mathematical calculation, and there are calculators that can calculate it for you. That's a lot of calculating in vocabulary anyway. But yes, for the most part, it's not a bad period. And also, Jupiter looking towards the fourth house as well. This is the relationship to the mother. It feels to me like during this time, the relationship with the mother, your mother, or a mother figure is really going to come to the forefront, because you have a lot of aspects there. You have an aspect from Saturn, you also have an aspect from Jupiter, and also from Rahu. So this could also be a good period of time for you to, rethink your relationship with your mother, because Jupiter is still a great benefic, and generally anything it touches tends to be a positive experience, or an area that it aspects tends to be something that generally goes well. This can be a good time to mend the relationship with your mother, or to get close with your mother, get back in touch, again, depending on what the situations are. So yeah, generally the relationship with the mother and the family of origin is going to be quite positive, even though Ketu falling in the second house can also show a significant coldness and detachment as well. Or it could just become more spiritual. So you will feel like the connection to your family of origin is going to be more spiritual, but maybe not so much physical, right? Like in the sense of getting back together, or like hanging out with family of origin. Maybe it's not going to happen that often, but you might still, maintain a spiritual connection, maybe still keep in touch, verbally and all that, and have a quiet sense of feeling like you are part of a family and that you support each other. And then Saturn is transiting through the seventh house, and this is, again, has been a long transit, and it's going to still be there for a while. And the seventh house, of course, is the house of the spouse, but it's also one of the most important houses when it comes to your career and your social status as well, because of the Bhavat Bhavam concept, which makes the seventh house the 10th from the 10th house. So it's kind of like a higher expression of the 10th house, if you will, or like an ultimate expression of the 10th house. And this is showing kind of a mixed message in many ways when it comes to your career. Even though you might find that throughout this period, and of course the preceding months when the transits were going on, you may have found that it was easier for you maybe to find jobs or to find business, but at the same time, you may have also been making less money than usual, or you had to work harder for the same amount of money or something. There could have been a lot of obstacles. Also, Saturn tends to bring frustrations, and that means that you probably have not been progressing as fast as you would like when it comes to your career. So Saturn tends to be a hard taskmaster that wants you to work really hard and really prove yourself and plan every step along the way, not leave anything to chance, and be as responsible as possible when it comes to your career. That's how you would get the best results. But ultimately, with Saturn being in the mix here, it definitely shows that you're not going to be getting a lot of handouts during this time. So you're still going to have to work and persevere. And like I said, make the most of your natural resources. But yeah, Saturn is really an aspect of effort. So a lot of effort has to be put into the career. And then, of course, the seventh house is also the house of the spouse, or a kind of partner, whether it's a business partner or a different kind of partner. And this shows that when it comes to business, when it comes to romance, again, there can be challenges, but ultimately the main idea is that any kind of relationship that you have in your life, any kind of partnership that you have in your life, that is just not based on a solid foundation, that was not built on a solid foundation, probably is going to crumble throughout this time. You may have realized that, maybe people that were in your life before have started to kind of disappear or fall by the bandwagon, or, you kind of naturally end up distancing from each other because Saturn really only cares about, something long lasting, something serious, where there's a lot of mutual responsibility, a lot of mutual support. So basically, this aspect, even though it can be really isolating, so definitely if you are a person who's single, this can make it even harder and can really emphasize a feeling of loneliness. But it's really creating, it's kind of like, in a way, paving the path for something better to come. And I know that sounds really cliche, but that's generally what Saturn does. Saturn is the lord of karma. So in many ways, it makes you work through whatever issues you are having when it comes to, let's say, relationship issues or psychological issues. Of course, Saturn also, the seventh house also is the house of sexuality in Vedic astrology, even more than the eighth house. So again, there could be issues surrounding sexuality, things that you have to work through, or it's really good if you can manage to work through them during this time, because Saturn's really gonna, shed a light on these issues. Anything that is not working with respect to the seventh house is really gonna come to the forefront during these transits. And then Rahu going through the eighth house and then aspecting the 12th and the fourth houses. I think this is also bringing a very strong feeling of dissatisfaction, a feeling of being not happy with the status quo. There could be a feeling of inner restlessness, like your emotions are not really settled. Of course, a lot of this, as usual, I always issue this disclaimer, depends on what the individual horoscope is showing. So if, for instance, you already have Moon in the eighth house and then you have Rahu transiting on top of Moon, that would really ramp up potential emotional instability, maybe even to the point of having to deal with certain mental issues. But generally, if, there are no other planets in the eighth house or any of the other water houses and you just have this transit, it may not be that, particularly eventful, but it will still carry this kind of like restlessness, potentially a wanderlust as well, like kind of a feeling of the grass is greener on the other side, wanting to travel in order to get away from things that are not making you happy, thinking that, breaking away from your current environment is going to solve all your problems. And then Rahu in the eighth house can also show an interest towards all things eighth house, of course. So it will intensify the interest in hidden forms of knowledge, including things like astrology, tarot, anything that would fall under occult, teachings, witchcraft, Wicca, and all that stuff. Can also, eighth house is very much connected to that. It's also connected to resources, especially other people's money. So this can really make you, for instance, seek out a loan during this time. You might have a tendency more than usual to end up in debt, really. Again, especially if there are a lot of malefic influences in the natal horoscope that have to deal with the eighth house or the fifth house as well, or the 12th house as well, because the 12th house is the house of losses. You could really end up in debt, so be careful about that. So you might be more open towards using other people's resources, whether it's debt, but this can also show a stronger interest in things like insurance, pension plans, stuff like that. So again, anything that involves kind of making use of other people's money. And the eighth house is also about foreign languages, foreign lands where there are foreign languages being spoken. So there can be a particularly strong interest in foreign languages and learning a new language, or maybe, again, particularly being drawn to foreign countries where there are different languages being spoken. And of course, last but not least, the eighth house is also about, it's not the last, wait a minute. I just wanted to say the eighth house is also connected to research. So there could be a stronger desire than usual to be research oriented, to really dive deep into your interests. And then the eighth house is also the house of in-laws. So it can create difficult relationships to the in-laws for those of you who are married, right? And another thing that has to be said is because Rahu can be connected to deceptiveness and is kind of a trickster sort of, um, a kind of trickster sort of energy, you have to be really careful when signing any kind of a contract. Again, especially when it has to deal with, well, any kind of a legal contract, really, but especially when it has to deal with banking, insurance, so eighth house sort of stuff that has to deal with using other people's money or, yeah, investment funds, stuff like that. Also, in your case, because Rahu co-rules the seventh house, this also shows that there can be, well, in some ways, this is a good thing, when it comes to relationships. For people who are already in a long-lasting relationship, this means that there might be a strengthening of the bond during this time. And for those people who are not necessarily in a relationship, or let's say people who are considering getting married, that's another legal contract, really. You have to be really careful about what you're signing. So things like prenuptial agreements and stuff like that, or think really hard before you commit to a relationship legally. Think about, reading the fine print and all the possible implications, because there might be unpleasant situations there, especially, again, if is a lot of affliction in the horoscope surrounding the 8th house or the 7th house, or any planet sitting in the 8th house or the 7th house. Another thing is Saturn is aspecting Saturn is sitting in the 7th, it's aspecting the 9th. So this shows that most of your efforts, your conscious efforts, are going to be put towards the 9th house. So 9th house can rule things like higher education, things like, getting a PhD or specialized studies. This also shows just education in general, but especially things that have to deal with higher education, academia, research, philosophy, religion. So you might be particularly drawn to, expanding your knowledge in these fields. But then there will be a slow and steady progress towards this. So there might also be some obstacles and frustrations when it comes to seeking this kind of knowledge. Same thing with relationship to the father, relationship towards teachers or mentors. They can be quite formal, quite distant because of the Saturn energy. And there might be some potential, frustrations there. Aside from that, because it's aspecting the 9th house, of course, this means that, well, 9th house is also travel. 12th house is also travel. So there's quite a lot of malefic influence on the travel houses. So this generally means that you need to watch out for traveling, because it might create unpleasant situations. You might have all kinds of frustrations when traveling abroad, especially traveling abroad, not so much domestically, because it's showing far away travels. There might be frustrations. Like I said, there could be all kinds of delays. Like you might find yourself, I don't know, dealing with flight delays or worse, flight cancellations, or, any kind of frustration of anything that could happen when you're traveling. Really, they could be really intensified during this time when Saturn is in Aquarius. And looking at the Ascendant, this can just show that, you're going to feel a stronger than usual desire to improve your physical appearance, especially since Saturn is aspecting the 6th house, is ruling the 6th house as well, and the 7th house. On a bit of a more negative note, this can also show potential health problems that are caused by lifestyle. So if you, I don't know, develop, let me give an example. It's like maybe you have been smoking for years, but now suddenly you're coughing more often, right? Or, I don't know, you have been eating sugar for years, but just it's only in recent history that your blood sugar started getting high, So things like that. That's pretty much what I'm thinking of. So things that can be eliminated or reduced, at least through changing your lifestyle. these are things that you can expect to see during this time. Okay, so moving on into the chart 2 phase, which is going to start around March 26th, and it's going to last until around June 8th, 2025. So during this time, Saturn and Rahu are going to be conjunct in Pisces, and Jupiter is going to switch signs. It's going to start being in Taurus from March 26th to May 13th, after which it's going to go into Gemini from May 13th to June 8th. And that's also why I didn't illustrate the Jupiter on the chart, because it switches signs. So yeah. So obviously Saturn and Rahu are going to go into the 8th house, and they're going to be looking at your 2nd house. And this is going to intensify issues connected to the 8th house, both the good and the bad. So on the one hand, this means you have to become extra careful when it comes to signing any kind of contract, just like in the first phase. But in this phase, like I said, extra careful because you have two malefics going into the 8th house. On the other hand, this also means that your relationship to your in-laws could really start to become tense if you are married, right? This means that there might be frustrations, there might be arguments, there might also be delays. When it comes to marriage or long-term partnerships, though, there will be a stronger sense of stability, even though there won't be huge ups of happiness or something. There will be kind of a slow and steady development for the most part. And this also shows that, when it comes to, let's say, things like investments, insurance, but especially things like investments, right? So things where you, let's say, have put your money in an investment fund and you are expecting to gain something, you might see a frustration in how much you're gaining from those investments. So, or they might tend to go down, like for instance, stocks and stuff might tend to go down during this time. So again, of course, this means you also have to be careful. You also have to be careful with this transit when it comes to taking out a loan or doing anything that involves banking or using other people's money. Taking out insurance, there might also be obstacles and frustrations when it comes to insurance. So, like, I don't know, getting an insurance claim might become more difficult. Not necessarily that all of them are going to go bad or something, but just it could mean more delays, it could be more frustrations. Maybe they will ask you for extra documents or something like that, right? So because Saturn is going in there, you can expect an increase of some kind of obstacle, some kind of annoyances overall. Also, when it comes to studying, let's say learning a foreign language, you might find yourself, again, really, I don't want to say struggling because, again, a lot depends on the individual horoscope. But again, there might be more of a slowing down, more of a frustration when it comes to, learning a foreign language. Or also when it comes to anything connected to the 8th house, like occult sciences, research of any kind. Again, money management, where you have to manage other people's resources. So any kind of, let's say if you work in management, you might have to deal with more unpleasant situations, more frustrations, more obstacles. But bear in mind that Saturn ultimately wants to test you. It's called the Lord of Karma for a reason. So Saturn just wants you to be as thorough as possible. And whenever Saturn is going through a particular house or touching a certain area of life, it's really wanting you to look at what is working and what isn't working in that particular house. So as long as you keep this mentality of it's a learning experience and you have to pay attention, because, as long as you do, it's going to become a very enriching transit, because by the end of it, you're going to know a lot more about things like, investments, managing your money. Of course, 8th house can also be taxes. That's another one. So there might be more frustrations, like I said, more obstacles. But again, if you pay attention, if you do the work, if you rise up to Saturn's challenges and obstacles, you will become a lot more knowledgeable and a lot more confident in anything that the 8th house can throw at you. Positive note, let's say, because Saturn is going in there, even though Rahu is kind of like a destabilizing energy generally, Saturn going in there is really kind of stabilizing the eighth house energy, because eighth house can be connected to ups and downs, sudden changes, sudden transformations, not all of them pleasant, even things like accidents, worst case scenario. But because Saturn is going in there, like I said, it's generally more of a stabilizing situation. You're going to see there might still be fluctuations, but there won't be as big of a swing from one situation to another, right? There won't be as much turmoil as if Rahu were there by itself. But aside from that, Saturn looking at the second house, and again, throughout the first phase, when Jupiter is in Taurus until May 13th, it's not going to be that difficult because it's still in Taurus, it's still in your 10th house, it's still aspecting the second and the sixth houses. So you still have a general protection when it comes to finances, when it comes to savings, when it comes to jobs, careers. You're going to find that it's still going to be relatively easy for you to find work or to, pay your bills in general. You won't see like any huge ups and downs when it comes to your finances. Even though Saturn now looking at the second house will, force you to maybe tighten the belt a little bit, in the sense of, rethinking your expenses and kind of like keeping you in check in terms of not being wasteful, right? So it is a good idea to kind of anticipate these problems and plan ahead. So plan to have a good amount of savings in case there are unexpected, unexpected expenses, really. Especially since in your case, Jupiter does rule the eighth house. So again, there's kind of a bittersweet influence here. And when Jupiter is going to go in Gemini, that's around May 13th, Jupiter is going to be moving into your 11th house. So, into your 11th house, this might actually boost your gains when it comes to your work in particular. So, this means that it will be much easier for you to find employment, whether it's business, whether it's a job, whether it's a partial gig or anything that you do to get paid where you provide a service. It's going to be easier for you to find an employment that is going to provide more money. So it's going to most likely increase your finances when Jupiter enters Gemini, because the 11th house is the second from the 10th. So that's really increasing the gains that you are getting from the 10th house. On the other side, on the more, let's say, potentially negative side, this also means that, of course, you will have to create your wealth. So 10th house, again, is connected to Saturn. It's connected to karma, social karma. So as long as you provide a service, as long as you are hardworking, diligent, and you are persevering and not leaving things to chance, and you're responsible in everything that Saturn wants you to be, you will keep getting a good amount of money. Most likely a better amount of money than in the first phase of this transit. Saturn will be aspecting the third house in Libra. It will aspect the seventh house as well in Sagittarius. So the positive of this, and also 11th house is also the house of the elder siblings. The third house is the house of the younger siblings. So this is definitely going to be a good time for you to get back in touch with your siblings. Potentially, if you have had tensions or bad connections with siblings, they're going to smooth out during this time. You might also see some kind of a gain coming from the relationship to your siblings. Maybe, see how that resonates. Could be all kinds of things. Cooperating together, getting an opportunity through your siblings, a recommendation, something that can, again, increase your winnings financially. And also aspecting the seventh house, this is showing that it will be a good time to find a potential long-term partner, especially if you're a woman, because if you're a woman, Jupiter is the Lord, it's the signifier of the husband. And also Jupiter is running your 8th house, like I said, and it's also ruling the 5th house as well. So yeah, I would say that during this time, the second phase, at least actually during the whole time when Jupiter is going through Gemini, this is definitely going to be a good time for you to meet someone, to develop some kind of romance, because again, Jupiter is ruling the fifth house and it's aspecting the seventh. So this is a great combination for romance, especially romance that will blossom potentially into a serious long-term relationship. Yeah. So, yeah, heads up if you're still searching for someone to marry. And aside from that, Jupiter aspecting the seventh house again. So it's aspecting the 11th and the seventh house. Is the seventh again because it's the Bavad Bava from the 10th house. This is again reinforcing the idea that you're going to be seeing some gains from your career. But this is also going hand in hand with Saturn being in the 8th and aspecting the 10th by third aspect. So clearly this is showing that consciously or not, you will feel compelled to put a lot of conscious effort into your career, your responsibilities during this time. So which is a good thing. It's a good thing for you. It's a good thing for the people around you as well, because you're probably going to have great opportunities to grow career-wise, professionally-wise during this time. And aside from that, with Rahu being in the 8th house again, well, the same thing will maintain with respect to the inner restlessness that I was talking about in the chart 1 phase. So there might still be like a lot of wanderlust. The difference is actually with Saturn here. Again, there's also kind of a connection to travel. Traveling to countries where a foreign language is being spoken, which for most people in the world is literally any foreign country. It might, again, bring some frustration, some obstacles, yeah. Which is not to say that you cannot travel, that you cannot enjoy yourself, but make sure that you take every precaution, and always with Saturn, you always have to anticipate potential problems. So don't leave anything to chance. So I don't know, if you know that, heaven forbid, you have an allergy, for instance, don't forget your anti-allergy medications, for instance, when you're traveling, or stuff like that. Always kind of think 2 steps ahead with respect to what might go wrong, and try to prepare and have everything you need with you. Aside from that, Saturn is also aspecting the 5th house. Yeah. So the 5th house is the house of self-expression, creativity, romance. And you might feel, again, a little bit stifled, especially since Saturn is ruling the 6th house and it's ruling the 7th houses. Ironically, Saturn, just as Jupiter, actually is good when it comes to meeting someone. Both Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn just because it rules reality, so anything that Saturn touches, it kind of brings things together in reality. So the fact that, again, Saturn is ruling your 7th house and it's aspecting the 5th house can be seen as a positive aspect when it comes to potentially meeting a significant partner. But then on the other hand, it might also stifle a little bit your sense of romance, your sense of playfulness. So it might, again, I don't want to say that you're going to become more boring than usual, but just be careful that you don't become super boring, or be careful that you don't deprive yourself of fun and entertainment. That's another thing, because Saturn can become so focused on work that you start to lose sight of the importance of play, right? And that might affect you not only relationship-wise with respect to being a fun date or not, but it will affect your general well-being, right? So you might, for instance, deprive yourself from time that you would have spent towards things that you liked because you feel you have to work harder. And just, yeah. So make time to enjoy yourself. Make time to still take care of your hobbies. Another thing that is really more specific, but it's definitely a possibility, is you might have to deal with competition when it comes to an educational program. So again, this would definitely be a good transit for applying for university, going through any kind of a test, really, an admission exam, a test, when it comes to anything connected to education. Because Saturn is ruling the 6th house, and again, it's aspecting the 5th. So the sixth house is about competitions. And yeah, it's generally a good time to have competitions, but again, you have to be really thorough, you have to work hard, you have to be, playing by the rules, because Saturn is all about convention and doing everything right. And yeah, this is pretty much the main stuff that I could see. So, another thing, one final mention, sort of, throughout the time when Jupiter is going through Gemini, this is also a good time for you to expand your social circle, to get out and socialize. And it also shows that you might feel more drawn towards, let's say, humanitarian pursuits or doing something in your community. And you're definitely going to see, the fruits of your labor if you choose to go in this direction. Anything that you put out, for the greater good of the community is something that you will be rewarded for. Okay, this is the main idea, the main ideas. These are the main ideas that I can say about the chart 2 phase. Moving on to the chart 3 phase. So this is from around June 8th to the end of the year 2025. I wrote December 31st, but of course it's going to continue into 2026. I just stopped analyzing on the 1st of January 2026, right? But until then, so during this chart 3 phase, Saturn is going to be in Pisces, Rahu is going to be in Aquarius. So Saturn and Rahu are basically switching places during this time. And then on top of that, Jupiter is going to start out being in Gemini from June 8th until about October 13th, after which it's going to be in Cancer from around October 13th to the end of the year, basically. All right, so what this means for you, the main thing is, again, Rahu is falling into your 7th house, and Saturn is going in Pisces. So, this means that, again, with Rahu in the 7th house during this time, for you, actually, this is a good thing. It's a good time for you to meet, again, a potential long-term partner. Why? Because in your case, Rahu is the co-ruler of Aquarius, which means that the Lord of the 7th house is transiting through the 7th house itself. So this is a good time for you to meet a long-term potential partner. If you already are in a romantic relationship, this is most likely going to be a stable period, right? Where you can rely on your partner, the relationship is going to solidify. But, of course, as usual with Rahu, there will also potentially be some unexpected situations, maybe some challenges, some ups and downs maybe with respect to this connection. And Rahu can also create a sense of dissatisfaction, and that's something you have to watch out for because, Rahu can be this kind of energy of always going for whatever is new and sparkly. It's kind of similar to Uranus in tropical astrology, if you are familiar with the descriptions. Because, again, Rahu co-rules Aquarius, so there is this link between Rahu and wanting novelty, wanting excitement, and wanting change. There is also an area to Rahu, a side to Rahu that is very materialistic and very superficial. So one thing you definitely have to watch out for is, for instance, taking your partner for granted, especially for those of you who are going to be in a serious long-term relationship. And, Rahu can create this kind of an energy where you could actually find the partner of your dreams, just a few months prior. And suddenly when Rahu is going through the 7th, you will start to notice everything that you don't like about them. And a lot behind this, a large reason behind this is simply because Rahu is not ever satisfied with what it has and always kind of wants more materially. Another thing is, of course, that Rahu, the 7th house rules sexuality, like I said, so Rahu in the 7th house can increase your desire for sexuality, for intimacy, and because the 7th, again, is the Bhavat Bhavam of the 10th house, this can also show an increase in your visibility. So if you're someone who needs to work online and or you have a social media presence, this is really going to help you because during this time, your popularity might increase. Not just that your popularity might increase, but it might also solidify your position, really. So, yeah, basically during this time, you might really make the most of, let's say, social media following and have an increase of, social status, visibility, recognition, career wise. Aside from that, so Saturn is going to be in Pisces, like I said. So everything that I said about Saturn from the chart 2 phase is still going to stand in the sense that you're still going to be focused on your career a lot. You're also still going to feel that potential drain on the second house. There's probably not going to be like a ton of money coming in, especially once Jupiter moves into Cancer, right? So in the first phase of this chart, while Jupiter is in Gemini, it's going to be transiting your 11th house. So the income is going to be pretty good and steady. But afterwards, when Jupiter moves into Cancer, you have to really start being more careful, more mindful of your expenses, and, again, make the most of what you have, save money, and all that. So Rahu aspecting the third house is also going to give you an increase of bravery, of gutsiness. You're probably going to feel more daring and with more of a desire to be independent and take on the world, so to speak. There will also be stronger chances of succeeding in business, especially for those of you who are, again, you have a side hustle or you want to make it in business one way or another, especially if you're working with an audience. So again, makes me think back to the social media issue. Like if you have any kind of a following, this is definitely a time to make the most of it and, use it for marketing or to launch a business because you're really going to be favored during this time. This is more specific, but it can also show that you might have some kind of a, how should I put it? I don't want to say conflict, but there could be some kind of a situation where your spouse is meddling in the relationship between you and your siblings. Or it could be about, and also, by the way, Rahu aspecting the third house can also show that, okay, this is really, really specific. Okay, so obviously this has to be looked at from the natal horoscope as well, but if you also have things in the natal horoscope that suggest this, it's a particularly strong transit. And meaning, what I was going to say is you might actually meet your future spouse in your neighborhood or online during this time. Because the Lord of the 7th house, again, is transiting in aspect to the 3rd house. But by the same token, again, it could be connected to the 11th house as well. So you could be meeting through some kind of social event or through a friend or through one of your siblings, like being introduced to them. And when Jupiter is going to move into Cancer, it's going to be transiting through the 12th house. And it's also going to be aspecting the 4th and the 8th houses. The positive side about this is you will definitely see an increase of your sense of optimism and faith. And there will be basically a better sense of happiness overall, especially because of the aspect on the 4th house. And an increase of creativity. Again, connections to the mother and also connections to the in-laws are generally going to improve during this time. This is also going to be a time when you're really favored if you want to go for occult research, actually any kind of activity connected to research, but especially in occult matters or psychology. And by occult, I mean things like astrology, tarot, and anything that's kind of unconventional knowledge. And aside from this, when Jupiter is moving into Cancer, this is also a good time for you to invest, especially in something to do with real estate. So this could be a great time for you to seek out a loan, for instance, to, let's say, get a mortgage, to buy a place on mortgage. it's definitely going to be favored during this time because, again, aspect on the 4th house, aspect on the 8th house, which is about banks and loans, and 4th house is about real estate. Same thing with vehicles. So any activity connected to vehicles, maybe even getting, your driver's license during this time is going to be favored. And you might also be really favored when it comes to spiritual pursuits. So you would definitely benefit from studying something like yoga or anything that has to deal with the mind-body balance and finding inner peace and, basically quieting the mind. Getting into the Silva method, for instance, if you've heard about it, if you haven't heard about it, but you can definitely research it. So it's basically about how to program your subconscious to achieve various results. That could definitely be something you would be favored to look into. Also, because Jupiter is ruling the 5th house, this is going to be an extremely creative time. And also, it's going to be a good time for you to travel to a faraway place for fun. So, yeah, if you have some kind of a holiday in mind that you have wanted to take for a long time, but you haven't gotten to it, this is going to be a good time for you to take that holiday. And or because it's not just about holidays necessarily, this can also be about specifically pilgrimages, going to places for spiritual purposes, like a spiritual retreat, getting in touch with, I don't know, a spiritual teacher, a guru, or something like that. And also this can be a really good time to renovate your home or improve something about your home or vehicles. It also shows that you're going to derive a lot of happiness from your hobbies, like maybe more than usual. Your hobbies and or education, whether it's teaching or learning. And another thing that maybe is more specific is during this time, because your creativity is going to be really working overtime, you're going to have a very rich imagination, very strong intuition as well. Like the intuition is really going overboard. So, especially when it comes to your dreams, like you might have to really pay attention to your dreams. You might be getting very strong messages about you through your subconscious. I'm not going to say to the point of like having prophetic dreams because although personally I do think that there are people who have that, of course that's extremely rare, so I'm not going to say that. But you might be getting strong messages about, let's say, your psychology, or even get ideas to solve your problems through coming to you through your dreams. But in general, like, because Jupiter is aspecting the water houses, and especially if this is happening from the moon, from the Chandra Lagna or the moon placement, right? If you have moon in Leo, you're definitely going to see an increase of your level of happiness and well-being. But even if it's coming from the Ascendant, same thing, you will see an increase of your mood, of your general happiness, your sense of faith, even with Saturn being in there in the 8th house, which can be a downer. But Jupiter has that power to uplift and create optimism and faith. So yeah, these are the main things that I can see for you when it comes to 2025. Thank you very much for listening. And I do want to mention, of course, feel free to come back to this video at any point throughout the year. Let me know in the comment section with respect to how it resonates, what doesn't. It would really help me to improve my future readings. Aside from that, if you are interested in getting a private reading from me on multiple topics, because I do a lot of different topics when it comes to private readings, you can check out the information that I left in the video description. You can write me an email and I can send you a list of reading options with prices and other details. If you're interested to find out more about the membership section and what it entails, you can watch the introductory part of this video, which again, I will be leaving in the timestamps. And last but not least, if you're interested in tarot, I also have a tarot channel, which I started a lot more recently than this one. I'm going to be linking that in the video description as well, so if you're interested in tarot, go ahead and check it out. Maybe subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you at my next video. Bye.